Hey guys, Level Cap here, and today I've got some tips that are going to help you take your first steps in the open world of Metro Exodus. Thank you very much to Epic Games for sponsoring this video. Check out the game via the link in the video description. The Metro franchise is known for its claustrophobic underground tunnels. The first two games, 2033 and Last Light, took place mainly in the Metro tunnels of Moscow. The journey through those tunnels was broken up here and there by trips to the surface. And while being out in the open might sound like a breath of fresh air, these sections made you feel somewhat vulnerable. The wide open environment allowed enemies to attack you from all angles, including above. And a prolonged journey to the surface really wasn't advisable. However, Exodus does have plenty of dark underground areas to explore, but most of the game actually takes place in the above ground environments. After a few missions in Moscow, you'll find yourself roaming the countryside. These open areas from the previous games are greatly expanded, and so are the threats that you'll see there. Pretty much everything living, including the plants, are out to get you. So what weapons do you have to defend yourself with? There's plenty to choose from, but you might not really know which route to go. There's a standard variety of handguns, submachine guns, assault rifles, sniper rifles, shotguns, pneumatic weapons, and a plethora of attachments to customize them with. Each weapon can be modified and upgraded to the point that it's barely recognizable from its base version. How you upgrade your weapons is also a bit different than it was in previous games. You can carry a backpack and scavenge for resources as you explore. Those resources let you craft medkits, ammo, and swap out attachments. While at workbenches, you have full access to the entire crafting system. But in the field, you can only craft a limited number of items, mostly health and steel ball ammunition for pneumatic weapons. In the field, you can swap weapons out with ones dropped by enemies, or you can swap them out at the main workbench aboard the Aurora. Just don't forget to strip dropped enemy weapons for new attachments. You also have to keep your weapons clean, which can only be done at workbenches. Dirty guns will jam, forcing you to clear the jam mid-combat. As you explore, you'll find abandoned houses, huts, and other shelters with workbenches. Keep track of these, as finding ammo and keeping your guns clean is actually very difficult on extended excursions. Also, keep an eye and ear out for side quests. At certain points, characters will tell you about locations or goals that reward you with valuable gear when completed.
In any case, there should be a lot of equipment there. Something might come in handy.
These include things like night vision goggles, upgrades to your wristband, and new weapon attachments. Most of these side quests involve an environmental puzzle. Some of these side quests can also lead to situations that boost your chances of getting a good ending to the game, but I'm not going to get too far into that just because of spoilers. So, what are the best weapons and attachments? Well, it depends on your playstyle. Generally speaking, it's good to carry weapons that take different ammo. It might sound smart to have 2 assault rifles, but it's going to limit you in terms of the ammo variety you can pick up and actually use in a firefight. And assault rifles themselves are so moddable that one assault rifle can really be configured to suit most situations you run into. So, assuming that you're picking at least one assault rifle for your loadout, the Kalash assault rifle is probably going to be your best general purpose weapon. The Bulldog is pretty much a straight upgrade, but the Kalash feels like it belongs in your hands. It's got the stylings of a classic AK-47 with the unique cobbled together look of other Metro weapons. The Kalash has the range, damage, and capacity to take on multiple enemies at most ranges, but it's also a pain to keep clean, and jams can turn it into a paperweight mid-firefight. Shotguns make great secondary weapons. They're incredibly lethal in close quarters and will down most enemies in a straight hit. Early on, you'll get the single shot, A-Shot, which can be upgraded to a double barrel and even quad barrel shotgun. This thing packs a serious punch, but having to constantly reload it makes it ineffective against too many enemies. Once you can swap this out for a Shambler, you'll feel a lot less vulnerable against groups of enemies. When it comes to sniping, the Valve Sniper Rifle is a smart choice if your goal is to clear out enemy bases from a distance. It's pretty much useless indoors, but otherwise it's incredibly powerful. Now, in previous Metro games, pneumatic weapons always felt kind of handicapped. You had so many traditional weapon options to choose from, so by comparison, pneumatic guns just seemed like slower and weaker options. In Exodus, the pneumatic T-Car rifle makes quick work of weaker enemies in the open world areas and is also a decent stealth combat option. The upgrades available for it, like the automatic tank pressurizer, really make it useful, especially in situations where bullets are in short supply. It's also the only weapon you can craft ammo for without a workbench, which puts a pretty big emphasis on using it to conserve other more rare ammo. Now, when it comes to attachments, each weapon has a healthy variety to pick from. Most new attachments will be straight upgrades from your old attachments, but some, like suppressors and sights, fill unique roles. Suppressors are great for stealth combat, but they overheat, causing your weapons to jam when fired in full auto. Likewise, night vision sights are useful in dark environments, but they just won't work in the daytime. When it comes to assault rifles though, the suppressor or long barrel are probably your two best choices for most situations. Use the long barrel for most engagements and swap to the suppressor for stealth options. The reflex sight is a pretty good general purpose optic, but it can be hard to see in the daylight. Laser sights are pretty much a go-to recommendation, especially if you're playing with the crosshair disabled. Now, if you're using something like the Shambler shotgun as your backup, you'll want to find the 10-shot magazine as soon as possible. This upgrade can be found here, and it will transform the Shambler into a monster of a gun. Beyond that, whatever attachments you're comfortable with will work just fine. Now, when it comes to the T-Car, this weapon's attachments are a little less straightforward than the other guns. Some attachments, like the automatic pump, seem like they would be the best choice, but it can actually limit the amount of damage you can do for your first few shots. The airtight pump, on the other hand, allows you to overcharge the T-Car, giving it more damage on the initial shots. Now, when you look at something like the 36-round magazine, it could be seen as a pretty cool upgrade because of the amount of ammo you get, but you get a bit of a stability downgrade with this magazine. And generally, you'll rarely find yourself firing that many shots before having to pump the T-Car again anyway. So consider the upgrades and downgrades carefully with your specific playstyle, accuracy, and recoil control capabilities. And once again, if you haven't yet played Metro Exodus, check the link in the video description to download the game. So, what are some of the best practices for combat? In the open world, feel free to take on the mutants, but avoid the biggest ones or large groups of them. Most mutants are easy to kill, but in groups they can really overwhelm you. The dog-like mutants and spiders are some of the hardest enemies to deal with because they travel in packs and move so quickly. Spiders in particular are tough to deal with if you don't have a shotgun because most of their body is armored. Use your flashlight to get them to expose their vulnerable underbelly for a quick kill. Funny enough, the human enemies are generally easier to deal with by avoiding them as much as possible. Headshots will kill most humans in one shot, but without a suppressor, you're opening up a can of worms. Bases will go on high alert if you get spotted or shoot an unsuppressed gun. This gets all nearby enemies on the hunt for you. So even if you manage to sneak into the shadows after alerting the enemies, they'll keep looking for you. Alerting human enemies also means you might miss out on NPC dialogue that reveals things like supply caches or information about side quests. Stealth combat is a very useful, if not necessary, tool, and there's a good variety of options to choose from. You can sneak up on enemies and do lethal or non-lethal takedowns. Any weapon with a suppressor also makes for a great stealth option. You can use them to shoot lighting fixtures instead of killing enemies, or go for headshots to take enemies out silently. Just be aware that not all human and mutant enemies can be killed in one shot, even when shot in the head. The T-Car also works as a stealth weapon, though it's not as quiet as other suppressed weapons like the pistols. Generally, your best bet is to stick to the shadows and avoid big gunfights when possible. Some sections throw you into an all-out conflict, so don't worry about missing out on the action if you choose the stealthy combat route. However, if you're not as interested in the stealthy combat options and you plan on going loud in most of your engagements, be sure to visit workbenches whenever possible to keep your ammo topped off. You'll go through hundreds of rounds getting through an enemy base without even realizing it. Running out of bullets in a Metro game is no joke. Blasting humans away may also hurt your chances of a happy ending, so fair warning. Despite how daunting it might seem, it's important to really explore the open world area in Exodus. Use the binoculars to have points of interest marked on your map, and be sure to explore these areas thoroughly. It's easy to miss a good weapon upgrade or important item if you don't check every nook and cranny. That said, of course, you shouldn't feel powerless without all the extra weapons and gear upgrades. Enemies regularly drop improved weapons that can be scavenged for parts. If a character talks to you about a specific location though, be sure to check it out. Like I said at the start of the video, there are side quests and areas where you'll find the best loot. Above all else though, take your time with Exodus. Metro games are best enjoyed at a slow pace. Take the time to absorb the world, the stories, and the characters. A ton of the backstory and character development in Exodus takes place as conversations between NPCs that you can overhear. Rushing through the game or not sticking around the Aurora between excursions will leave you missing out on a big chunk of Exodus's story. With that, I'll leave you with the sights and sounds of Metro Exodus. And again, if you're interested in the game, be sure to check the link in the video description. Thanks for watching. This is LevelCap, signing off.